What's going on, friends? There's not many brands out there currently today that are building motorcycles like Harley-Davidson does. It is getting really hard to find a cruiser or a bagger that's actually got a large displacement V-twin engine in it. These are getting rare and hard to find from manufacturers brand new. Anymore, your options are pretty much limited to Harley-Davidson, Indian, and maybe one of the two models that Kawasaki still produces. But other than that, you're kind of SOL when it comes to the big twin cruiser market. Now guys, it is no secret that Harley-Davidson has won this battle for years and years, year after year. But Harley-Davidson really needs to be paying attention to what Indian is doing. Say what you will about Polaris and Indian Motorcycle, but they are actually doing things that looking towards the future while doing them, while Harley-Davidson's just kind of over there doing whatever it is Harley-Davidson does in their own little world. Harley-Davidson and Indian are very comparable motorcycles on a lot of levels, in price, in quality, everything you get with the bikes. But the issue that Harley-Davidson is having is that Indian Motorcycle is quickly becoming what Harley used to be. Now, Harley-Davidson, with their 2025 prices and arguably a lot of their styling on their new models, this has got a lot of people looking around, and Indian is becoming a very attractive option. Now, Indian is a really attractive option when we get into the baggers, and I'll get into that a little later in the video. Guys, please don't forget, if you liked today's video, don't forget to hit that like button, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. I absolutely love Harley-Davidson, but with the 2025 models, and I'm starting with the Softail here, the entry-level Softail with the Street Bob starting at $17,200 for chrome finishes and not even black paint, you get gray paint. That kind of got me looking around and wondering what Indian has to offer. And yes, I did get out and look at some of the competition because it's just something I like to do. Now, my question to you guys is how is Harley-Davidson going to compete when you can get an Indian Chief for $14,999 in black paint with black finishes? It does have some chrome highlights, but $15,000, how is Harley-Davidson going to compete with that when their starting model in the big twin line is $2,200 more? Now, granted, for $15,000, that Indian Chief, it does come with their 111 engine, which that's a great motor. It's been around for a long time. Now, it's only got 108 foot-pounds of torque compared to Harley-Davidson's 117 that you get with the Street Bob and the 120 foot-pounds of torque that goes along with it. Now, that's expected to be with the cost difference and the trade-offs that you get. The problem that Harley-Davidson has right now is they don't have a lower cost entry-level model into the big twins. They basically give you a Nightster with black paint for $13,200 and say, here you go. What Indian has essentially done is taken their Chief line, their big twin cruiser line, and they're doing what Harley-Davidson used to do with the Softails. As you go up the line, yes, they cost a little bit more. It is the same motorcycle, just in a different iteration. But as you go up the line, you get a bigger engine, you get more options. Indian's doing all kinds of things right now that Harley-Davidson used to do. But unlike Harley-Davidson in a comparable model, Indian's actually selling these for less than what the comparable Harleys used to sell for because, well, Harley-Davidson doesn't do it anymore. Now, it's not a huge difference in price when you're comparing the Lowrider S to the Indian Sport Chief. Now, the Sport Chief does come with the 116 engine, black paint, black finishes at no extra cost. Now, on the flip side of that, on the Lowrider S, you do have an upcharge for black. They're going to charge you $349. I guess that's the good news. That's on the lower end of the color option charges when it comes to Harley-Davidson, but that's going to bring you in at $2849. So just $850 more than the Sport Chief, and me personally, obviously, I'd be a little willing to pay an extra $850 to get the Lowrider S. Now, where it gets really interesting is that when we move into the touring line, Harley-Davidson actually did away with any bikes that were a little lower cost to get you on a touring motorcycle. There's nothing of value like in the line anymore, how we used to have the regular Street Glide, and then we had the Street Glide Special. Now, the regular Street Glide used to not be too insanely priced, and when you moved up to the Special, you'd add about another $3,500, $4,000, depending on what year it was. Now, what Indian is doing is they are filling that gap between not having a less expensive bagger and a really expensive bagger. Well, I'm not saying the entry level is super cheap, but it's cheap by today's standards. And not only that, Indian is actually expanding and doubling down on what's coming down in the future. Now, Indian is offering their Chieftain which is basically their version of the Street Glide at $23,999. Now, of course, once again, this is the 111 engine. You do have chrome finishes, but there's no extra charge for black paint. Now, that should get your attention at $24,000 when an entry-level Street Glide coming from Harley-Davidson is $27,349. Now, that should get your attention at $24,000 when the chromed-out Street Glide in gray paint is $27,749. That's as cheap as you can get into a brand new Street Glide today from Harley-Davidson. Yes, the entry-level Chieftain does cost $3,750 less than the cheapest Street Glide you can buy right now. Now, granted, that is with the 111 engine, and the 111 engine does put out roughly about 120 foot-pounds of torque. Now, not a huge difference when you're comparing that to Harley's 117, which is dropping about 130. Now, honestly, these are just figures on paper, so you definitely want to get out and ride both of these bikes and pick the one you like most. But personally, for $3,750 that I'm not spending, that would leave a lot of money to do something to that Indian if you're looking for a brand new motorcycle and you're comparing an Indian to a Harley-Davidson. Just gonna put that out there. Now, don't get me wrong, Indian does have their share of motorcycles priced right up there with Harley-Davidson. You want to go with the Dark Horse with all the blacked out finishes on it. This bike will set you back about 30 grand without having to tick a bunch of boxes for extra options like you do on the Harley-Davidson. So you can just walk right in, pick your color, and drop down 30 grand and walk out with your brand new motorcycle. And once again, it still does come in a little bit cheaper than Harley-Davidson on the retail price. Where Harley-Davidson is not competing with Indian at all, and that is going to be in the future when eventually we will see the demise of air and oil-cooled engines and everything's going to have to be water-cooled. Yes, Harley-Davidson does have the Revolution Max, and they are kind of dabbing their toes in the water when it comes to the twin cooling, but nothing fully water-cooled in a big twin engine. Now, Indian's got some experience with a large displacement, liquid-cooled V-twin engine for their baggers, and they're doubling down on it with some new models. Now, we all know the Indian Challenger got the frame-mounted fairing on it. It's got the 108 cubic inch liquid-cooled single overhead cam engine that's dumping down 122 horsepower. That Power Plus motor has been awesome, and honestly, they don't sound too bad either. Now, what Indian has done is they've expanded this line. They went to the Chieftain, which is basically Indian's version of Harley-Davidson's Street Glide. They took the same bike with the Thunderstroke engine and they swapped it out for the Power Plus motor, which is going to be the same 108 cubic inch, 120 horsepower engine that we find in the Challenger, but you're going to have the fork-mounted fairing, and then the Challenger is going to actually have the frame-mounted fairing. So just a little thing to note, take into consideration there. I really kind of feel like that Power Plus Chieftain would be what Harley-Davidson Street Glide would be if they actually went with full water cooling and an all-new engine. Now, I mentioned that Indian has doubled down on this. They didn't just double down on it with a new model. They've got a new 112 cubic inch Power Plus engine that puts out a little more horsepower at 126. Now, you can get that in the Dark Horse version starting at $28,500. So, once again, Indian is quite up there with Harley-Davidson, but they do have some better options and an expanded line where Harley-Davidson's line is almost shrinking down to nothing. The biggest thing here is that Indian still has some lower cost options to get you in the dealers and get you on a brand new motorcycle. Now, I understand brand new bikes aren't for everybody, and I also understand that buying a used one and going through it yourself or paying somebody to do it, that's not for everybody either. So if you're in the market for a new motorcycle, you're not really going to be looking at Harley-Davidson. You're probably going to be looking at Indian based on price. And guys, I have to admit, Indian's come a long way. They've proven to be a pretty damn good machine. This is why Harley-Davidson is going to lose a lot of business to Indian, and if they do eventually have to go water-cooled, I feel like they're going to be well behind the curve when it comes to Indian, because Indian's had those water-cooled models out there for quite a few years now. So guys, I need your opinions. What do you think? Do you think Harley-Davidson should be looking at Indian and doing what Indian is doing? Bringing back their lower cost options to try to get some people in there and start moving some motorcycles? Or do you feel like Harley-Davidson should just keep doing what they're doing? I need your opinions on this, guys, so let me know down in the comments. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But till next week, you guys stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.